Have you ever thought about whether $1 could actually be worth more than a dollar? Well, in the world of economics, it absolutely can. Today, we are diving into something called the multiplier effect. It's this incredible chain reaction that shows how a single dollar of spending can literally ripple through an economy and create this huge wave of new growth.
So this is the big puzzle we're going to solve together. How on earth is it possible that when the government spends just $1, the whole economy can grow by $2.50? I know it sounds a little bit like magic, right? But it's actually pure economic logic. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly how it works.
Okay, so before we get to the magic trick, we first need to get to know the key players on stage. So let's start with the absolute basics.
When economists want to measure an economy's total output, its GDP, they basically just add up all the spending. And for our model, that spending comes from three main engines: what we consume, what businesses invest, and what the government spends.
First up is consumption, which we just call C. This is the one we all know intimately. It's literally everything we buy, from our morning coffee to a new car. And as you can see, it is by far the biggest slice of the whole economic pie.
Next, we've got investment, or I. Now, quick heads up, this is not what you think. We're not talking about buying stocks and bonds. In economics, this means businesses spending on physical stuff that helps them produce more later on. Like a factory buying new robots, or a family buying a brand new house.
And finally, there's government spending, or G. This is all the stuff the government buys, from paving roads to paying for the military. Now here's a really crucial point. This does not include things like Social Security checks. Why? Because that's just a transfer of money, not a direct purchase of a good or service.
So, if you add all of that up, the spending from you and me, from businesses and from the government, you get the total demand in our little economy. We call this Z. Pretty simple, right? Z just equals C plus I plus G.
So we've got the building blocks. But what's the secret sauce? What's the thing that really makes this multiplier kick in? Well, it's not some complicated financial instrument. It's actually just a really simple, predictable quirk of human behavior.
Okay, I know. This looks like scary math, but I promise you, stick with me because it is unbelievably simple. This little equation is called the consumption function, and it's just a fancy way of describing how we decide to spend our money. It just says that our total consumption, C, is really just based on two things. Let's break them down. All right, so that first part, C0, that's your baseline spending. It's what you'd spend even if you had zero income, maybe by dipping into your savings. You could just think of it as a measure of your confidence. The second part, C1, is even easier. It's your propensity to consume. In plain English, if you get an extra dollar, what chunk of it do you go out and spend? If you spend 60 cents, your C1 is 0.6. And let me tell you, this little number is the real hero of our story today.
And that confidence factor, that C0, is so incredibly powerful. As our source material puts it, the second we start worrying about what's coming, we start saving more, even if we're still making the exact same amount of money. I mean, we saw this play out in real time back in 2008. When Lehman Brothers collapsed, it sent this absolute shockwave of fear through the system. People's confidence, their C0, just plummeted, and spending dropped like a rock before most people had even seen a change in their paychecks. That's just how powerful our expectations are.
Okay, we've got all our pieces on the chessboard, we know the parts of the economy, and we know about the spending habit that drives everything. So now, let's watch how they come together to create this incredible chain reaction.
Here it is. This is the single most important rule in this whole model. For an economy to be stable, or in equilibrium, as economists say, the total amount of stuff being produced, which we call Y, has to perfectly match the total amount of stuff being demanded, which we call Z. Production has to equal demand. Y equals Z. That's it.
Okay, so let's watch the magic happen. Imagine the government spends $1 billion to build a new bridge. That $1 billion doesn't just disappear, right? It goes into the pockets of engineers, construction workers, steel suppliers. It's their new income. Now, remember our spending habit, our C1? Let's say it's 0.6 or 60%. All those people are now going to go out and spend $600 million of that new money. But hold on, their spending becomes new income for grocery store owners, mechanics, you name it. And what do? Well, they spend 60% of that, which is another $360 million. And you can see this beautiful ripple effect just keeps on going.
So when you add it all up, that first billion, plus the 600 million, plus the 360 million, and all the little rounds of spending that follow, it just keeps expanding. The total boost to the economy isn't the $1 billion the government started with, it's $2.5 billion. That is the multiplier effect in action.
And this is the simple, elegant formula that makes it all happen. The multiplier is just 1 divided by, in parentheses, 1 minus C1. So with our spending habit of 0.6, it's 1 divided by 0.4, which gives you 2.5. The whole incredible power of this idea comes down to that one little variable, our collective habit for how much of each new dollar we decide to spend. Now, I get it. That's a stunningly powerful and clean model. But as we all know, the real world is, well, it's a lot messier. So how does this neat theory stack up against our complex reality?
The famous economist John Maynard Keynes actually described this exact same idea from a slightly different angle. We said production has to equal demand. He said investment has to equal saving. It might sound different, but trust me, it's just two sides of the very same coin, describing the exact same state of balance.
And this leads to something fascinating and totally counterintuitive called the paradox of saving. I mean, we're all taught from a young age that being thrifty and saving your money is a good thing, right? But what happens if everyone suddenly decides to save more at the same time? Well, our model shows that would cause a huge drop in spending, which could actually cause a recession. And the ironic part? Because everyone's income would fall, the total amount of saving in the economy might not even go up at all. Crazy, right?
So this all leads to a really big question. If the government has this formula, does that mean it can just dial up any level of economic growth it wants? Can it just tweak spending or taxes and become all-powerful?
Well, the short answer is a hard no. As our sources make really clear, reality is just full of messy complications. For one, actually changing government spending is a slow, painful political process. Plus, our simple model ignores a lot of things, like sudden changes in business investment or what people expect to happen in the future. And of course, there's always the risk of racking up huge deficits and a mountain of public debt. The simple math doesn't make the real-world choices any easier.
So, there you have it. The multiplier gives us this incredibly powerful way to see how one simple human habit, our choice to spend, can ripple through an entire economy. The model is the core logic, but the real world layers on politics, psychology, and global trade. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Of all those real world factors, which one do you think throws the biggest wrench into this beautiful machine?